She had no date, no friends at the wedding. Then the groom's millionaire friend sat beside her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The soft melody of a string quartet floated through the evening air as fairy lights shimmered above the wedding garden. Every table glowed with candles, champagne glasses, and laughter. But at the far edge of the reception, Maya Carter sat alone, clutching the strap of her old guitar case like a shield. She was not supposed to be there. She had come to play background music, not to sit among the guests. Yet somehow, one of the waiters had mistaken her for a friend of the bride and ushered her to table number 6, right beside the groom's inner circle. She tried to blend in, lowering her head as she adjusted the guitar leaning against her chair. The scent of roses and expensive perfume filled the night, reminding her that her own dress came from a thrift store and her heels had been glued twice. She whispered to herself, "Just stay quiet, Maya. Eat nothing, break nothing, and leave before anyone notices." A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. "You know, this is the first time I have seen a guest bring a guitar to a wedding." She froze. Slowly, she turned toward the man sitting beside her. He looked effortlessly composed. Dark suit, perfectly tailored, a hint of stubble softening his strong jawline. His tie was loose, his smile relaxed, the kind of smile that belonged to someone who never had to worry about rent or late-night gigs. I think there has been a mistake," she stammered. "I am not really a guest. I am just—" He leaned closer, curiosity flickering in his gray eyes. "Just what?" "Just sitting at the wrong table." He laughed, low and genuine. "Then maybe I am too." Her heart skipped. The words were simple, but his tone disarmed her. For a brief second, the chatter around them faded, and all she could hear was the soft hum of the band playing near the dance floor. The man extended a hand. "I am Ethan, friend of the groom. And you?" "Maya," she said quietly, shaking his hand. "Guitarist, kind of accidentally seated among the millionaires, I guess." He chuckled. "Then that makes you the most interesting person here." Maya tried to smile but quickly looked away, embarrassed. She had played at weddings before, always on the edge of the celebration, never part of it. Yet something about this man, his calmness, his humor felt different. As the night went on, Ethan stayed beside her. When the bride threw the bouquet, when the lights dimmed for the first dance, when laughter filled the garden again, he never left that seat. Every so often, he would glance at her, as if trying to read the music written behind her shy eyes. She did not know that he was Ethan Grant, the groom's best man, a tech millionaire, and the man who would soon rewrite the melody of her life. The morning after the wedding, sunlight spilled through the blinds of Maya's tiny attic apartment. The room was small enough that the sound of her kettle boiling echoed like music. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her guitar resting against the wall. Its strings were slightly rusted, its wood chipped near the bridge, but it was the one thing that always listened. She strummed a few chords softly, lost in the memory of the night before the laughter, the smell of champagne, and the stranger with the calm gray eyes. She did not even know his last name, just Ethan. For all she knew, he was already back in whatever world he belonged to, a world of luxury cars and crisp suits. Maya sighed. "It was just one night," she whispered. "People like him forget girls like me before the music stops." She slipped the guitar back into its case, grabbed her jacket, and left for her shift at the coffee shop down the block. The cafe was crowded with Monday fatigue, office workers, students, and the usual hum of espresso machines. Maya tied her apron and began serving tables. It was not glamorous, but it paid for rent and strings. Her friend Clara, another barista, nudged her with a grin. "So, how was the wedding gig? You were glowing when you came back last night." Maya laughed softly. "Glowing? Probably just from embarrassment. I sat at the wrong table and ended up talking to the groom's friend for half the night." "Was he cute?" "Too cute," Maya said, pouring coffee, "and too far out of my league." Around noon, as she wiped down a table near the window, a familiar voice made her freeze. "So, this is where the mysterious wedding guest hides during daylight." She turned. Ethan stood by the door, casual this time, no tuxedo, no crowd, just jeans and a navy jacket. He held a takeaway cup and that same unbothered smile. For a second, Maya forgot to breathe. "What are you doing here?" she asked, almost laughing from surprise. "I needed caffeine," he said, "and maybe an encore of that conversation you ran away from." Her heart raced. She motioned to the seat across from her. "Well, I am technically on break." Ethan sat down, looking around the modest cafe. "I like this place. It feels real." "It feels old," she said, "but it is all I can afford. That makes it even more real." They talked again about music, about the city, about how dreams sometimes lose their shine when bills arrive. He listened without interrupting, which was rare. When she mentioned her unfinished song, his eyes softened. "You should finish it," he said. "Unfinished songs are like unsent letters. They haunt you until you write the last note." His words stayed with her long after he left. That evening, Maya carried her guitar to the riverside where she often practiced. The water reflected the amber glow of streetlights. She played quietly, and every note felt heavier with meaning. Halfway through her melody, she sensed someone nearby. She looked up. Ethan stood a few feet away, hands in pockets, listening. He smiled. "I was taking a walk and heard your music. Guess the universe really wants us to meet twice." Maya shook her head, half amused, half nervous. "You will get bored. It is just an old tune." "I doubt that," he said. "Keep playing." Under the city lights, her song filled the air, fragile, raw, beautiful. Ethan stood silently until she finished, then spoke softly. "Promise me something. Do not stop playing no matter what life throws at you." Maya looked at him, unsure why his words mattered so much. "And what if I already did stop? A little." "Then start again," he said. "Tonight can be the first note." She smiled, shy but genuine. For the first time in a long while, the night did not feel heavy. It felt like a beginning. She did not plan an accidental rhythm that might just turn into something unforgettable. The next few weeks passed like pages from a quiet song. Every Friday night, Ethan came to the cafe just before Maya's shift ended. Sometimes he ordered coffee, sometimes tea, but always stayed until closing time. He never asked for anything in return, except a song. Maya played while he listened, his attention steady, his presence soft but unmistakable. People began to notice. Clara whispered one evening as she wiped the counter. "Your mystery customer is back again. I swear he looks at you like you are the only melody in the room." Maya laughed, brushing it off, but deep down she felt the same flutter every time he entered. One Sunday afternoon, Ethan surprised her with an invitation. "There is a small art fair at Riverside Park. Local artists, live music, good food. You should come, bring your guitar." Maya hesitated. "I usually just play for tips, not in front of fancy crowds." "It is not fancy," he said, smiling. "Just people who love art. You belong there more than anyone." That night, she found herself under a canopy of twinkling lights at the fair. The smell of roasted almonds and coffee floated in the air. She took a deep breath and started to play. Her voice trembled at first, but soon the rhythm found her again. When the crowd applauded, she looked up and saw Ethan watching from a few steps away, his expression proud, almost protective. After the show, he walked her home through the quiet streets. "You were incredible," he said. Maya laughed softly. "I forgot half the lyrics." "Maybe, but you made everyone feel something. That is what real music does." They stopped by the old bridge that crossed the river. Wind brushed through her hair, carrying the faint scent of rain. Ethan leaned on the railing beside her. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "If you could go anywhere, no limits, where would you play?" Maya thought for a moment. "The Bluebird Theater in Denver. My mom and I used to dream about that place. She said one day I would stand on that stage and play something that mattered." His voice softened. "She sounds like she believed in you." "She did," Maya said, her throat tightening. "She passed away last year." Ethan looked at her, quiet for a long moment. "I am sorry, Maya." She nodded. "It is all right. I still feel her when I play. That is enough." When they reached her apartment, he paused at the door. "You know, you should finish that song you told me about." Maya smiled faintly. "Maybe someday. Maybe sooner than you think," he said, then turned and walked into the rain, leaving her staring after him. The following week, she found an envelope slipped under her guitar case at the cafe. Inside was a short note written in neat handwriting. "There is a community concert at Central Hall this Saturday. The stage is yours, if you want it. E." Maya's hands trembled as she read it. She almost laughed at the absurdity. A real stage? For her? But something inside her, the same spark that had been dim for so long, flickered back to life. Saturday night arrived. She stood backstage, guitar in hand, heart pounding. Through the curtain she could see the audience, and in the front row sat Ethan, calm and smiling. She stepped onto the stage, took a breath, and began to play her unfinished song. Her fingers moved instinctively, each note carrying fragments of her past, her mother's voice, and the quiet strength she had forgotten she had. When the last chord faded, the room erupted in applause. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled through them. Ethan rose from his seat, clapping louder than anyone. Their eyes met across the crowd, and in that moment, Maya knew this was no coincidence. The man who had sat beside her by mistake at a wedding was now the reason she had found her voice again. The days after the concert felt different for Maya. The city looked brighter, and even the sound of morning traffic carried a rhythm she had not noticed before. She played her guitar every night, not for tips, but because it finally felt like her purpose again. Ethan visited the cafe less frequently, and each time he did, there was a new sense of distance in his eyes, something careful, something unsaid. One evening, when the crowd thinned out, Maya gathered the courage to ask, "You have been quiet lately. Did something happen?" He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Nothing bad, just a lot on my plate. You sound like a man with secrets," she teased gently, trying to lighten the air. Ethan looked down, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe I am, but they are not the kind that should matter tonight." Before she could reply, he placed a small velvet box on the table. It was not jewelry inside, was a silver guitar pick engraved with her initials. Maya's breath caught. "Ethan, this is just a reminder," he said softly. "That music is part of who you are. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise." She smiled, eyes glistening. "Thank you. You always know what to say." That night, after he left, Maya could not sleep. Something about his expression lingered in her mind, the way he looked at her, as if memorizing her before saying goodbye. A few days later, the cafe door swung open, and a tall woman in a navy suit stepped inside. Her voice carried quiet authority. "Excuse me, is Maya Carter here?" Maya turned, confused. "That is me." The woman smiled politely. "I am Claire Donovan. I work for Mr. Ethan Grant. He asked me to deliver this." She handed Maya a cream-colored envelope embossed with silver lettering. Maya's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was an invitation. Grant Foundation, Charity Gala, featuring a special performance by Maya Carter. Her heart pounded. The Grant Foundation? The name sounded familiar, but she could not place it. Claire noticed her hesitation. "It is a formal event. Black tie. Mr. Grant spoke very highly of you." When Claire left, Maya stared at the invitation for a long time. It felt unreal. Why would Ethan choose her for such a high-profile night? Saturday arrived sooner than expected. The ballroom shimmered with gold chandeliers and the low murmur of high society. Maya felt out of place in her borrowed dress, clutching her guitar like a lifeline. As she stepped onto the small stage, the host's voice echoed through the speakers. "Please welcome tonight's special guest, the talented Maya Carter, invited personally by our chairman, Mr. Ethan Grant." The name hit her like lightning. The chairman? Spotlights turned toward the front table where Ethan sat among the city's most powerful figures. He was no longer the easygoing man from the cafe. In a black tuxedo, poised and distant, he looked like a stranger, a millionaire, in his rightful world. Maya's throat tightened. Every chord she played trembled with emotion she could not hide. When the song ended, the applause thundered, but all she could hear was her heartbeat. She stepped off the stage and caught Ethan's eyes across the crowd. For a brief moment, he looked torn, relieved, yet guilty. Maya walked toward the exit without a word. The night air outside was cold against her skin. She whispered to herself, "He was never just Ethan. He was someone I was never supposed to meet." Behind her, Ethan stood frozen among the glitter and applause, realizing too late that the truth he had hidden might have cost him the only woman who ever saw him as more than a name. Maya did not remember how she made it home that night. The applause, the lights, the faces, all blurred into a single ache in her chest. She dropped her guitar on the couch and sank to the floor, still wearing the borrowed dress. Her reflection in the window looked like someone else, someone foolish enough to believe that kindness could mean something real in his world. She had not known Ethan Grant, not truly. He was the man who sat beside her by accident, who listened to her play in the rain, who encouraged her to finish her song. But the man at that gala, the chairman, the millionaire, he had hidden all of it behind silence. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. "Please let me explain." She stared at it for a long moment before turning the phone face down. Some explanations came too late. The next morning, the city looked gray again. She went to the cafe, but the music inside sounded hollow. Clara took one look at her and frowned. "You look like you have been crying all night. What happened?" Maya forced a smile. "Just another wrong song at the wrong party." Clara did not ask further. She knew heartbreak when she saw it. That evening, Maya carried her guitar to the riverside, the place where everything had felt simple. She sat on the same bench and tried to play, but her hands trembled. The melody fell apart halfway through. For the first time in years, she stopped playing completely. Across town, Ethan sat in his penthouse, staring at the city lights that stretched endlessly beneath him. The world should have felt victorious. His company's event had raised millions for charity, but none of it mattered. Every success felt empty without her there. His assistant, Claire, approached quietly. "Sir, about Miss Carter? Should I reach out again?" He shook his head. "No, not yet. She deserves honesty, not damage control." Days passed. Maya avoided the places where she might see him. But fate, as it had before, had other plans. One rainy afternoon, she was playing a small street gig outside a bookstore. Few people stopped to listen. When she finished, a folded note slipped into her guitar case caught her eye. It read, "You once told me unfinished songs haunt us. I finished something for you." Inside the note was a sheet of music, her melody, completed with chords she had never written. At the bottom, 2 words. "For Maya." Her eyes filled with tears. She looked around, but Ethan was not there. Just the rain, soft and endless. That night, she went home and played the finished version. The new chords blended perfectly with hers, filling every gap she had left empty. It was as if he had understood what her silence had been trying to say. By the next morning, she knew what she had to do. She walked to the Grant Foundation building, her guitar strapped across her back. The receptionist looked startled when she asked to see him, but within minutes, Ethan appeared in the lobby, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Maya," he said quietly. "You came." She nodded, steady but calm. "You owe me that explanation." He exhaled. "I should have told you from the start who I was. I wanted to know what it felt like to be seen without the title, without the name. But then you made me forget there was a difference." Maya's eyes softened, though her heart still hurt. "You could have trusted me with the truth." "I know," he said, "and I am sorry." Silence stretched between them. Then Maya held out the sheet music. "You finished my song." Ethan smiled faintly. "No, you did. I just wrote the part I was missing." For the first time since that night, she smiled back. Something fragile but real began to mend between them like 2 melodies, finally finding the same key. The following weeks moved slowly, like a record turning on a scratched groove. Maya and Ethan began to speak again, first through brief messages, then over coffee in quiet corners of the city. The awkwardness between them softened little by little, replaced by something quieter, deeper, something that felt like understanding. One evening, Ethan called her and asked if she would visit the Grant Foundation's music center. "I want to show you something," he said. When she arrived, the building was nearly empty. The sunset cast golden light through the glass walls, touching the polished piano and shelves filled with instruments. Ethan stood near the stage, dressed simply for once, no suit, no formality, just a man, waiting. He smiled when he saw her. "We are starting a community program here. Free music classes for underprivileged kids. I thought maybe you would like to teach." Maya blinked in surprise. "Me? Why?" "Because you know what it means to fight for your music," he said. "And because you have a way of making people believe again." She looked around the room. The space was beautiful, hopeful, and she felt something in her chest lift for the first time in months. "I do not know if I am qualified," she said softly. "You are exactly who they need," he replied. That was the beginning. Every afternoon, she taught a small group of children, boys and girls, whose laughter filled the hall like notes of a brand new melody. Ethan often dropped by, sometimes helping to tune guitars, sometimes just sitting in the back, watching her work with quiet pride. On one of those afternoons, as the class ended and the children rushed out, Ethan stayed behind. "You look happy," he said. "I am," she answered. "It feels like I finally belong somewhere." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You always belonged somewhere, Maya. You just forgot." Their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. The sunlight dimmed, and the city lights began to glow outside. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. The gesture was small, but it made her heart race. "Ethan," she whispered, "why do you keep showing up?" "Because every time you play, I remember what it feels like to be human again." Maya felt her breath catch. The air between them was electric yet tender. But before either could say more, the sound of footsteps broke the silence. Claire entered, holding a stack of folders. "Mr. Grant, the board is waiting upstairs." He straightened, the brief softness fading behind his composed expression. "I will be right there," he said, then turned back to Maya. "I am sorry. Duty calls." As he left, she watched him go, realizing that his world and hers still existed miles apart. Yet, even from that distance, something invisible connected them like two notes that refused to stop echoing. Later that night, Maya sat alone by the window of her apartment. The city lights blinked below, and her guitar rested on her lap. She played the song they had finished together, the one that had once belonged to her mother, now reborn as theirs. Every note carried a memory: the wedding, the cafe, the river, the heartbreak, the apology. By the time the last chord faded, she understood that love was not just about perfect timing. It was about staying through every wrong note until the music found its way again. Outside, rain began to fall, soft and steady, tapping against the glass like applause from a distant crowd. And somewhere across the city, in an office high above the streets, Ethan paused his meeting for a moment, listening to the same rhythm against the windows, as if the world itself was reminding him of her song. The following month brought both calm and tension, the kind that settles quietly before a storm. Maya's program at the foundation grew quickly. The children adored her, and the music hall that had once been silent now echoed with laughter and rhythm every afternoon. Yet, every time Ethan appeared, a flicker of unease shadowed his smile. One Friday evening, Maya was gathering music sheets when she overheard two board members speaking near the hallway. Their voices were low, but sharp. "The chairman's obsession with that girl is becoming a distraction," one man said. "Investors are questioning his judgment." "She is a good-hearted teacher, but let us be honest," the other replied. "She is not our kind. He risks everything for her." Maya froze, her hands tightening around the papers. Their words stung more than she wanted to admit. When she turned, Ethan was standing behind her, expression unreadable. He had heard them too. Later, when the building was empty, she confronted him. "Is that what they think? That I am a problem for you?" Ethan sighed. "They see numbers, image, reputation. They do not see what matters." "But you do care," she said quietly. "You have worked your whole life to build this world. You cannot let me be the reason it cracks." He stepped closer. "Maya, do you really believe you are a reason for anything bad in my life?" Her voice trembled. "I believe that sometimes love hurts more when it happens in the wrong place." He shook his head. "Then let me prove you wrong." The next morning, news broke on several business sites. Ethan Grant, chairman of Grant Foundation, rumored to resign amid internal conflict. The articles spread fast. Maya's phone buzzed non-stop, friends and reporters asking questions she could not answer. When she reached the foundation, the staff looked at her with mixed sympathy and curiosity. Ethan was in the conference room, facing a wall of executives. The air was thick with tension. "I will step back temporarily," he said to the board. "Claire will handle operations. My focus will be on expanding our outreach program, the one Maya started." The room fell silent. The board members exchanged glances but did not argue. It was clear his decision was final. After the meeting, Maya found him by the window, staring at the city below. "You should not have done that," she said. "You do not owe me anything." He turned to her, calm but firm. "I do not do things out of debt, Maya. I do them out of conviction. You reminded me why I started all this in the first place." Tears welled in her eyes. "And what about everything you have worked for? Maybe this is the only thing worth working for," he said softly. She wanted to believe him, but fear held her back. She stepped closer, her voice breaking. "Ethan, I cannot be the reason you lose everything." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried both peace and pain. "Then let me lose what does not matter." That night, Maya walked home under a bruised sky, her heart heavy with a mix of love and guilt. She replayed his words again and again. Somewhere deep inside, she knew that his choice was not a sacrifice, it was a declaration. Across town, Ethan sat alone at his piano. His fingers pressed softly against the keys, playing the melody that belonged to them both. For the first time, the song sounded unfinished again, as if waiting for her to return and complete it. 2 weeks later, the city felt quieter than usual. Autumn had arrived, painting the streets in amber and gold. Maya had not seen Ethan since that day at the foundation. The music classes continued, but the emptiness behind every note reminded her of what she had lost. The children still laughed, still played, but she could not shake the memory of his voice saying, "Then let me lose what does not matter." Every evening, after the last student left, she sat alone in the practice room. Sometimes she played, sometimes she just stared at the window, watching the leaves fall. One afternoon, Claire entered carrying a brown envelope. "Miss Carter," she said gently, "Ethan asked me to give you this." Maya hesitated before taking it. Inside was a single letter written in Ethan's handwriting. "Maya, I have stepped away from the foundation for a while. I need time to fix what I broke, not in business, but in my heart. I am leaving for Colorado to work with a rural music project. It is something I should have done long ago. Do not wait for me, but do not stop playing. You once said your mother believed in the power of unfinished songs. I think ours still has one verse left." Her eyes filled with tears as she read. The thought of him walking away hurt, but the honesty in his words carried peace. Days turned into weeks. Maya poured her heart into her classes, teaching the children to find courage in every note. One day, she organized a small open concert in the foundation courtyard to showcase their progress. Parents filled the seats, and the children's laughter echoed off the marble walls. It felt like home again. Before the concert ended, one of the volunteers handed her a box. "Delivery for you, Miss Carter." Inside was a new guitar, handcrafted, maple wood, engraved with her initials and a small line beneath. "For every song that healed a heart." Her breath caught. A folded note lay beneath the strings. "I will be back soon. Keep the music alive until then. E." She smiled through her tears and carried the guitar onto the stage. "This song," she said to the audience, "is about hope, even when you think you have lost it." She began to play. The first notes floated into the cool evening air, rich and alive. The children joined in with small percussion instruments, their rhythm imperfect but full of joy. By the time the last chord faded, the crowd stood clapping, and for the first time in months, Maya felt whole again. As the lights dimmed, she looked up at the balcony overlooking the courtyard. A tall figure stood in the shadows, hands resting on the railing. The crowd was too focused on the children to notice, but she did. Her heart skipped. Ethan. He looked thinner, sun-touched, dressed simply in jeans and a worn jacket. When their eyes met, he smiled, the kind of smile that carried both apology and promise. After the show, she hurried upstairs, breathless. The balcony was empty, except for another small note resting on the rail. "One more verse, Maya. Meet me at the riverside tomorrow night." That night, she lay awake, unable to stop replaying his face in her mind. The rain outside whispered softly, as if the world itself was urging her to go. For the first time in a long while, she felt that familiar warmth return to her chest, the quiet certainty that the melody between them was not over yet. The following evening, the riverside shimmered beneath strings of amber lights from the nearby bridge. The same place where Maya once played alone now felt alive again, waiting. She arrived just after sunset, her new guitar in hand, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and hope. The sound of water lapping against the rocks filled the silence until she heard footsteps approaching behind her. Ethan stood there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes soft under the fading light. "I was not sure you would come," he said quietly. Maya smiled faintly. "You left me a note." I could not ignore a melody that still needed its final verse. They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that speaks louder than words. Finally, Ethan took a slow breath. "When I left, I wanted to prove that I could live without titles, without the walls I built. But the truth is, every song I heard, every sound I played, reminded me of you." She looked at him, tears shining in her eyes. "You broke my heart, Ethan, but you also helped me find it again." He stepped closer, pulling something from his coat pocket. Inside a small velvet box lay a silver ring shaped like a treble clef. You once told me your mother said music could heal anything. I want to believe she was right. Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving it? Maya's breath caught. The city lights reflected off the river as she whispered, yes. Ethan smiled, slipping the ring onto her finger. Then this time, no secrets, no wrong tables, just us. She lifted her guitar and strummed softly. The same song that began their story filled the night. Now complete. Now whole. Ethan joined her, his voice blending with hers, gentle and sure. As the final note faded, he kissed her forehead. For all the mistakes that led me to you, he said, this was the best one. Under the golden glow of the riverside, with the city as their witness, Maya and Ethan's story ended where it began, with a song, a promise, and a love born from one beautiful mistake.